This is KGW News at 5.
Welcome to KGW News at 5, and we begin with a huge fire burning right now in Washington County, and it has forced evacuations and street closures. From Sky 8, you can see that huge plume of dark smoke billowing up from the plant. You can see flames there. Here's where the fire is burning. It is an ethanol fuel facility in Cornelius on 4th Street. That's not far from Tualatin Valley Highway. That road is closed right now in the area around the fire. Good evening, I'm Laurel Porter. The fire started early this afternoon. It's going to take hours before it's out. Mike Benner joins us live in Cornelius. Mike, give us the latest on what you're hearing about this fire.
Yeah, Laurel, good evening. I can tell you that firefighters are getting some water on the flames, but aside from that, they're concentrating a lot of their efforts on assessing the dangers. And in fact, just minutes ago, we heard a couple of explosions coming from the fire. We're a good quarter of a mile to a half mile away right now, and just check out that black smoke billowing up from the scene of this fire. For those of you who don't know, when you see the black smoke, that means there's still plenty of flames. When this fire's under control is when you'll start seeing white smoke, and we haven't seen any of that yet. As we roll some footage shot from Sky 8, I can tell you that this fire started around 1:30 this afternoon. We know that this is an ethanol fuel facility near the Walmart in Cornelius. This facility, we understand, makes racing fuel. Again, this fire started around 1:30. We understand from witnesses there were a number of explosions, the flames 40 to 50 feet in the air. This quickly turned to a 3-alarm fire. That means there's well over 100 firefighters out here. Cornelius, Forest Grove, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, you name it. They're, again, trying to get a hold on this thing as we're back live again, looking at just that black smoke billowing up. We understand that about 80 homes were evacuated, and those folks are being asked to go to Forest Grove High School for further instructions. We know a number of businesses were also evacuated, including the Supercenter Walmart here right behind us. Authorities here on scene telling me that at the very least people will be evacuated from their homes until at least 7 o'clock, if not longer. Again, fire crews assessing the dangers right now. There are explosions still happening. We'll remain here at the scene gathering more information as we get it. We'll be sure to pass it along. For now, I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Mike, I had a quick question for you, if you can still hear me. We keep reporting that we haven't heard if anybody's been injured or anything. Have you heard any more about that?
Yeah, good question, Laurel. To our knowledge, nobody has been injured. Bystanders, employees, residents nearby, and that is just really good news considering what's going on here behind us. Again, flames 40, 50, 60 feet in the air, explosions because of gas tanks and fuel tanks in the area. So, again, wonderful news to hear nobody has been injured to this point.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Mike Benner, live in Cornelius. We'll stay on top of this story. Thanks, Mike. And new here at 5 o'clock, the president of the Portland Police Officers Union is resigning immediately. He wasn't clear about the exact reason why, but we know it involved the false hit-and-run allegations against Commissioner Joanne Hardesty. Brian Hunziker became the Portland Police Association president just back in November. In a statement released this afternoon, the PPA Executive Board wrote, "Over the last 24 hours, we learned that Portland Police Association President Brian Hunziker made a serious, isolated mistake related to the Police Bureau's investigation into the alleged hit-and-run by Commissioner Hardesty. We apologize to Commissioner Hardesty for that mistake and will be reaching out to meet with her personally," unquote. Now, we have asked and we are waiting to find out what that mistake is. You may recall earlier this month, a driver accused Commissioner Hardesty of a hit and run. And again, that turned out not to be true. An activist group that's been critical of Hardesty said someone leaked them the police report and they put the information on social media. The news spread before police could rule out Hardesty as a suspect. We will keep you posted as we learn more about this. The pandemic is winding down, but it is important to remember we are not out of the woods yet. Experts say the significant uptick in the amount of the virus found in wastewater in Corvallis is proof of that. Keely Chalmers has that story.
In recent weeks, the amount of COVID-19 virus flowing in the wastewater beneath Corvallis had been declining. The trend was promising. But last week, things started to change.
It had already started to increase last week.
Since last spring, Tal Levy and a team of researchers at Oregon State University have been collecting wastewater from sewers in an effort to track COVID-19. With every flush of the feces of an infected person, an inactive form of the virus enters the sewage system. And the amount in the sewage system this week was surprisingly high.
But it was a significant uptick in many parts of Corvallis. So I would expect to see an increase in cases over the next week.
What's interesting is that the samples were collected the day before the city relaxed COVID restrictions.
So we'll see if the reopening leads to a continued increase or not. I think no one wants to see us go back into the extreme risk category and then see things have to shut down again.
It's not that it's going up in concert everywhere across the state, right?
Fellow OSU researcher Benjamin Diel says an uptick at the end of a pandemic in certain areas is not unusual.
The tail phase of a pandemic is, in some ways, it's a mirror to the emergence phase. So if you think back to last March or April, we were in this place of having these sporadic outbreaks start to occur.
Dr. Ann Loeffler, deputy health officer for Multnomah County, says with spring break coming up, now is not the time to let our guards down.
So I don't want anyone to feel like they sit in their house for spring break. But for example, if they're going to go to the beach, I really would hope that they can make the choice to not go with 4 other families, for example.
The bottom line, even with vaccinations ramping up, the COVID threat continues.
There's still a lot of virus in Benton County, even though we've been in a decline, and it could come right back up to extreme.
Keely Chalmers, KGW News.
Now, researchers just did a door-to-door testing survey this weekend in Corvallis. They will look at that data to see if there is, in fact, an increase in cases. We should know those results in the next few days. We get dozens of questions every day about the vaccines, and we want you to be able to turn to us for answers. On Wednesday, tomorrow, Pat Doris and Kristen Severance will be answering your questions in a special KGW Q&A. The vaccine, scheduling, and beyond. They've been covering all aspects of the vaccine since the first one was approved, and they'll share tomorrow their expertise and knowledge and take your questions. That's at noon tomorrow on KGW.com and on our Facebook page.
When we do come back together, we want to feel it. We want to be into it. We want to enjoy it. We don't want to have any hesitation. We want everyone to be ready.
Another iconic Portland tradition will look different again this year because of the pandemic. You won't be able to go to some of your favorite Portland Rose Festival mainstays like the parade and the fair. But organizers and volunteers tell our Morgan Romero this year's theme is Hope Reigns for a reason.
Here is the Queen's Float.
It's the one time of year that everyone looks forward to, where everyone comes out onto the streets of Portland and celebrates our community and celebrates the people within it.
Moving on down the street and out of sight.
It's also a big part of the economy and bringing people together and bringing people here.
For the second summer in a row, we won't see the Grand Floral Parade or the City Fair.
We just feel like Oregon's just not ready for the size and scope of those events.
For safety reasons, Portland Rose Festival Foundation CEO Jeff Curtis says the festival is scaling down again this year, with virtual and some smaller in-person events.
And we got through the months of thinking about this. It came down to what our greatest goal is the long-term success and viability of this festival. At the same time, the health and wellness, with safety being absolutely paramount.
I think it's the right decision, but for sure, I'm disappointed.
Although longtime volunteer Contessa Diaz-Nicolaitis is glad they'll still crown the 2021 Rose Festival Queen outside in Washington Park.
I'm very, very passionate about what it can do for those in our community.
Born and raised in the Rose City, it's personal for her.
So moving through that process and then being able to come back and be a part of it in a different way has been an amazing experience.
You can still celebrate with the second annual Porch Parade and virtual Fleet Week.
An idea is about getting the neighborhoods excited about and pride about Portland as a city and as a neighborhood and as a Rose Festival season. So decorating your porches, your front yard, your gardens, and a spirit of Portland and the Rose Festival.
Curtis says the countdown clock is ticking down to May 2022, when Portland will see the biggest and best fireworks, fairs, and parades yet.
We have a theme this year called Hope Reigns. And I think it's appropriate, as we have a festival in its format that we can do safely, that we continue to have hope in our community in Portland, and Rose Festival will be there to celebrate next year for sure.
We're going to miss it this year. We certainly missed it last year.
Morgan Romero.
It will make next year even more special.
KGW News.
Yes, it will. Hope reigns for sure. And without its mainstays like City Fair, Curtis says the foundation took a $400,000 hit last year, but it is here to stay. Don't worry, thanks to support from corporate sponsors and the community.